Okay. Okay. Wasabi, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. I know y'all see this, right? Y'all see the what are these called again? It's a nice t-shirt. Don't I look schnaz? Okay, whatever. We're gonna watch today. We're watching most disturbing revenge stories in history. You already know how I feel about history on this channel. I love my history. His story. Me. Be a story. I'm kidding. Alright, let's get started. It's not a beautiful day though, dude. It's gloomy outside. Let's get started.
Most disturbing revenge stories in history. Oda Nobunaga and Sugitani Zenjubo. It's June 22nd, 1570, and a ninja is lying in the brush above a mountain pass, waiting for his target to arrive. His name is Sugitani.
Stop it. I would love to be a ninja. Don't they have those kunai? I'm thinking about Naruto. Never mind.
Zenjubo, and he'd accepted a mission that few would ever dare. He was tasked with assassinating the most fearsome daimyo in all of Japan.
Daimyo?
For over 100 years, Japan had been engulfed in total war. Regional warlords had carved up the islands into 68 provinces, and every man who could raise an army was convinced that he would be the one who would one day rule the entire country. Alliances are shattered as quickly as they're made, as every ruler looks for their edge, and from amidst this chaos, a minor warlord
Bro, they look
named
so
Oda
cool with those
Nobunaga
swords, bro.
had
I
gone
know
from
they
a
had some
complete
aura, but
nobody to the most feared man Japan had ever seen. See, Oda was one of the first samurai to equip his army with the Tanegashima, an early matchlock gun. The results on the battlefield were horrifying, as anyone who fought him quickly saw their samurai fall without even having drawn their swords. Within the span of just...
Okay, the first person to ever have like made a gun, right? What do you think their point of view is for the person that didn't see the bullet, right? They're like, oh yeah, man, he's just pointing a weird stick at me. He doesn't even have a sharp end to it. And they doing this, right? And they hear a loud boom. Seconds later, their friend is on the floor dead. Witchcraft! Witch! Witch! What do they call male witches? Wizards! Wizard! But I don't know. I mean, I saw a guy talk about how, like, when white people went to colonize Africa, they brought guns, right? Guns were obviously better than bows. If you don't know that, you're just dumb. And since black people didn't have, since Africans didn't have the weapons they had, they would point, they would shoot at someone, right? And they would stop because they'd be like, whoa. How did you just die? I didn't see no bullet. I didn't see, not no bullet. I didn't see no arrow. Nothing hit you. All I heard was like a boom, and all of a sudden you're on the ground. Dude, that'd be terrifying. You know, you're used to seeing like fighting people with bows. All of a sudden, this guy comes out with the most phenomenal weapon you've ever seen in your life, and you have to fight that every day just to take your land. Weirdos.
Just 8 years, Oda had grown so powerful that he's able to place a puppet shogun into power. He was now one step closer to his dream of being the one to unify Japan.
These
But not
drawings
everyone
doing
was
them
happy
dirty.
with this arrangement. On his campaign to install the new shogun, Oda trampled into Omi, the land controlled by the Rokaku clan, and their leader Yoshikata found this super disrespectful. He goes to battle with Oda, but is completely destroyed. To make sure the Rokaku know who's boss, Nobunaga drives Yoshikata from his lands, leaving him with nothing. Disgraced and enraged by the humiliation, the former daimyo dedicates all of his time to coming up with a plan to kill Nobunaga and take his revenge. And cut! Great job, Yoshikata. Really captured that pissed off feeling.
Bro, I feel like the reason revenge was such a big thing back then too is because you had nothing else to do, bruh. You think about it now, right? We get betrayed or something happens to us. We hit a man, that hurts. I gotta go to work. I gotta go pay these bills. I gotta go do other things. But when you're bored and you have nothing else to do and you already have everything else, no distractions. I want straight revenge. Only that. And you know, you gotta respect the game. You gotta respect the hustle. I can never be mad at
of wanting
it. Wait, I can feel an ad coming on. Hold on, watch.
revenge there. Thank you, narrator-san. But I do have worries that one day, my ancestors will not remember the many great things I have done. Well, luckily, with the help of today's sponsor, my...
Hey, get your money, bro. Get your money on. That's just, there you go.
assassin to complete his mission. He finds a master marksman named Sugitani Zenjubo, who was a crack shot. Oda being taken out by the very weapon he used to rise to power would be poetic justice, and so Sugitani is selected to be the one to take the warlord out. After years of careful planning, Yoshikata finally makes his move. En route to begin a new military
dirty with
campaign
the
in
drawings.
Echizen, Nobunaga is betrayed and nearly killed by his allies, the Azai clan, and the warlord is forced to retreat to his stronghold in Gifu. The Azai clan, who had coordinated with Yoshikata, blocks the preferred path to Gifu and forces Nobunaga and his men to take a treacherous mountain pass. This is where Sugitani had been placed, and soon the assassin sees his target come into view. He watches as the warlord carefully makes his way through the pass, and as he gets closer, the ninja readies his rifle and patiently waits. Nobunaga unknowingly rides towards the man sent to murder him, and when he's within 20 meters, Sugitani pulls the trigger. Gunfire flashes from the brush, and a lead ball screams towards the warlord. He misses and quickly grabs his second prepared rifle. He fires again, and the second shot glances off Oda's armor and knocks him to the ground. The warlord's men
Imagine the adrenaline rush, bro. I would have like 3 of them rifles just laid out. Bah, missed, boom, headshot.
turn and see the cloud of smoke and Sugitani running for his life. Nobunaga checks himself, and surprisingly, he's only suffered a scratch. He remounts his horse and returns home to his fortress in Gifu. As he enters his castle, he's pretty pissed off at a couple of things. Most importantly, he wants to destroy the Azai clan for their betrayal. But also, he never forgets the gunman who tried to kill him, and decides he too will one day face his final judgment. He hunts down the Azai clan, and like a dog, he forces them into battle again and again for 3 years until they are wiped from history. The clan leaders are forced to commit seppuku, and some sources say that Nobunaga collects their heads and has their skulls lacquered and made into drinking cups.
That's
Around the same
disgusting.
time, one of Nobunaga's
Bro.
lords finally
These guys had the weirdest versions of victory in their heads. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take his skull, right? And I'm just gonna, you know what I'm saying, drink out of it to show that I'm dominant. What a weird guy.
finds and captures Sugitani Zenjubo, who had been hiding in a Buddhist monastery. Sugitani is brought before Nobunaga, where he confesses that he was hired by
kind of aura.
Yoshikata and the Rokaku clan. Having just done the pretty impressive skull-to-cups trick with the Azai clan, Nobunaga takes some time to think of a punishment that would be equally satisfying for his would-be assassin, and he comes up with probably one of the most insane execution methods I've ever heard of. Sugitani is led out to the main road, and he watches as Nobunaga's men dig a large hole. They place him into the hole and bury him up to his neck. The ground is packed down around him, so
Bro,
he's
I'm
unable
fighting
to
for
escape.
my
He
life.
turns his head and sees Nobunaga's men place a blunt bamboo saw next to him. And finally, they drive a sign into the ground that invited anyone walking past to pick up the saw and cut into this man's neck. Over the next 3 days, Sugitani's head was slowly sawed off by hundreds of people,
Oh!
each taking their turn as they walked into town. Oh, and just for funsies, 9 years later, Nobunaga's son eventually finds Yoshikata's son hiding in a Buddhist temple. This was the child of the guy who had hired Sugitani to assassinate his dad and had no direct involvement in the event. But Nobunaga's kid still decided to set the entire temple on fire, killing all 150 people inside. I guess that kind of stuff ran in the family.
Now I'm telling you, bro, revenge ran deep back then. Oh, your ancestor killed one of my 17 ancestors, so I gotta kill you. I just work here. I don't make the rules, man. You gotta respect that. You gotta respect that. He said, doesn't that mean they gotta hate each other for the rest of their lives? I'm pretty sure that's what that means. You know, I don't know everything in my history, though.
The Tiger and Vladimir Markov. Okay, we've done some pretty crazy revenge stories on this channel, but this one might be one of the most unbelievable cases we've ever covered. It's a cold December evening in 1997, and Vladimir Markov is walking home to his cabin hungry again. The fall of the Soviet Union had been hard for him as he found himself out of work, and like many others in the far eastern outskirts of Siberia, he had now turned to illegal poaching to survive. Today's hunt was unsuccessful, and this was not good news. He hadn't eaten a real meal in a few days and was starving. But as
Bro,
he
you're
trudges through the
trash.
snow, he sees something up ahead that catches his eye. his hunting dogs run ahead and start barking when they find a freshly killed boar. Markov runs up and is shocked by the state it's in. It is completely ravaged with broken bones protruding from its body and blood seeping from deep wounds. Nearby, in the freshly fallen snow, Markov spots huge paw prints that are nearly the size of his hand. He knows that this was probably the work of a Siberian tiger, and a very large one at that.
Oh.
He looks around, but there's no sign of the beast. He looks down at the boar carcass, and with his stomach growling, he decides to quarter its hind legs. He can't turn away from a good meal, and he can trade the rest of the meat for essentials at the nearby logging camp. He slings the boar meat over his shoulder and resumes the trek home. But there's a saying in the area, a tiger will see you 100 times before you see him once. And Markov had just unknowingly sealed his fate.
Oh,
Later
why?
that night in his cabin, Markov is cooking a piece of the boar for dinner. The wind is howling outside, and he assumes that's what's knocking over some of the equipment. But the noises become louder and more peculiar. His beehives come crashing down, and his steel pots and pans begin loudly dropping to the ground.
His beehives?
His dogs begin barking, and as he listens carefully, he can hear someone or something outside. Markov grabs his gun as the noises outside grow louder and louder. It's now obvious that whatever's outside is huge, and it's slowly circling the poacher's cabin. Markov stares out a tiny hole he had cut to shoot deer that wandered near his home, and as he's straining to see out into the darkness, a giant yellow eye appears right in front of him. Markov thrusts the barrel of his gun.
Why did that scare me, bro? Bro, these headphones are loud, bro.
Through the hole and fires at the beast. The tiger lets out a blood-curdling roar and thrashes into the brush. Markov had found what had killed the boar he'd taken, or more accurately, it had found him.
Bro, I think tigers are terrifying. Did you know? Fun fact, guys. Fun fact. They use tigers' roars in those movies, like the intro when the lion roars. That's a tiger's roar, not a lion's. Because compared to a lion, the tiger's roar sounds way more. Is it dangerous or loud? Same thing, loud, dangerous. So yeah. And tigers are bigger than lions. Just letting you know. They're also cats. And they're terrible. I don't like tigers. They're terrifying. And by the way, a lion weighs 500 to 400 pounds. So yeah.
It's me. You're driving.
Bro, I hate ads, bro. I'm gonna get some premium real soon.
Vladimir spends the next day in his cabin, too afraid to leave. But he eventually runs out of food and is forced to leave his shelter. He opens the door carefully, and with the coast appearing to be clear, he rushes to a friend's house a few miles away. When he gets there, he barges into the house and begins smoking a cigarette to calm his nerves. He tells his friend what had happened the other night, and upon hearing the story, Markov's friend tells him that it sounds like this tiger is out for his head, and to leave so it doesn't show up here. Markov
What a real friend. You get out of my house, bro. I don't want to die.
Another friend and tells him the story of the tiger and asks him to help him go out and kill it. But this friend refuses and instead offers Markov a place to stay for the night. The poacher declines the offer and tries the nearby logging camp, but the men there also refuse. With no
What a
help,
bunch of
Markov slowly
wimps.
begins his walk home in the darkness of night. He arrives back at the cabin and sees that it had been ravaged. His outhouse was destroyed.
Why'd you
and
go
his
back?
shed storing the boar leg was ripped open. He raises his shotgun and slowly walks towards his front door.
That tiger
As
petty.
he draws closer, he finally sees what had caused all the destruction. Waiting for him was a giant male Siberian tiger. The beast sees Markov and begins rushing towards him. The poacher raises
Shoot
his gun
him!
and fires, hitting the beast in the front leg. Markov fumbles to load another shell, but before he can do that, the 500-pound tiger pounces on him.
Bro, it's not the time to
poacher's
fumble.
screams echo in the woods, but no one is near enough to hear him. The following day, Markov's friend arrives at his cabin for their pre-planned fishing trip. As he approaches the hut, he notices blood on the ground and assumes that Markov did not do a good job cleaning up after his latest kill. But then, he notices a hat in the snow and sees a trail of blood leading
Bro,
into the woods.
It's your fault
He
your friend
follows
is
the
dead.
trail and finds
He didn't want to
pieces
go
of
help
his
him.
friend's clothing, and then a dismembered dog paw. Suddenly, he hears a sound up ahead, a low growl, and he runs back to Markov's cabin. He travels down to the logging camp to call the authorities, who arrive the following day. A team from Inspection Tiger, led by a man named Trush, arrives and finds what appears to be a pile of laundry, until closer inspection. This pile was the remains of Markov. His boots were found with bones protruding from them. Nearby, his frozen, headless body was found eviscerated with one of his arms missing. And a few steps away, they find the remains of Markov's head, whose face had been eaten clean off. Trush and his team inspect Markov's cabin and find everything that would have had Markov's scent on it torn to pieces. The boar leg that was hanging outside was also missing. Trush finds a patch of melted snow and droppings near the cabin and concludes that the tiger had returned and waited for Markov for 2 days. Trush is shocked by the findings. He knows that tigers can be dangerous, but most often will only attack in self-defense. This one, however, seemed to ignore all the other humans in the area and was particularly interested in only killing Markov. In the following days, the tiger stalks another man to his home and kills and eats him in a similarly brutal fashion. Trush and his team are sent out to take the animal down.
It's a smart tiger,
they
bro.
eventually find the tiger, and when it's cornered, it attacks and nearly kills Trush before his men shoot it dead. Upon inspection of the tiger's body, they find that its front leg had been severely injured by Markov's shot and had become infected. This injury probably prevented it from hunting its normal prey, forcing it to kill its second victim. But even with that discovery, the evidence at Markov's cabin was overwhelmingly clear, and Trush's official report stated that the tiger had hunted and killed Markov for revenge for stealing his meal. Charles II
No
and
way!
Oliver Cromwell.
Animals are petty now.
September 6th,
Yo!
1751, and the 21-year-old Charles II is hiding in the branches of an oak tree in the English countryside. He stares through the leaves as parliamentary soldiers search the area for him. He knows that they're all hoping to be the man who captures the former Crown Prince of England. 3 days ago, in an attempt to retake his father's throne, Charles had led a group of loyalists and allied Scottish soldiers into battle at Worcester. The Parliament's new model army, led by a 42-year-old former farmer named Oliver Cromwell, vastly outnumbered them, and in the span of just 10 hours, 3,000 of his men were killed and another 10,000 were captured. As he desperately clings to a branch, he can't help but think that this was not how his life was supposed to turn out, and it was all Cromwell's fault. See, 10 years earlier, his father, Charles I, the King of England, had stormed into Parliament looking to arrest 5 of its members. By this
Okay, I know I keep talking, but listen. You know, back in the day, they had these names like Charles I. I guess I'm Peter the First, bruh. They just add the first to it. Because who was his dad before him? Right? His dad would have been the first. Yeah, my name is John the First. Or parents that name their kid Junior. Like, yeah, Peter Jr. Stupid.
This time, Protestantism had swept through the kingdom, and with it, the idea that the king had the divine right to rule had been shattered amongst the increasingly Protestant parliament. The MPs had limited the king's power, taking away his rights to tax people without their permission, and the right to arrest anyone he wanted to. What good is being a king if you can't do whatever you want? After years of denying his request to increase taxes, Charles I had had enough, and was looking to remind everyone who the real king was. But the men he was looking for that day were all tipped off and were not there. And instead of solving the problem, this act of storming into Parliament kicks off the English Civil War. Without nobles with military experience, Parliament promotes its members to leadership positions in their army, and one of them, an MP from Cambridgeshire named Oliver Cromwell, turns out to be an absolute military genius. Driven by a fanatical Puritan faith and convinced he is an instrument of God's will on earth, Cromwell builds a cavalry regiment that tears through the royalist army. By 1646, King Charles I was defeated and ended up a political prisoner
Bro,
of
it
the
was
Scots.
dark back then,
While
bro.
in captivity,
Holy cow.
Charles secretly makes a deal with the Scots and convinces them to attack England and help him regain his throne. This attempt is again crushed by Cromwell, who then warns Parliament that the king cannot be trusted and that he must be dealt with once and for all. And so, on January 30th, 1649, Charles I is led outside the banqueting house in London and publicly beheaded in front of a crowd.
Okay, another thing. Beheadings were like watching a TV show back then. You know? Yo, what are you doing this weekend, bro? Well, I have to do laundry. Hey, there's a beheading in North. You want to go see that? Yeah, yeah. I heard it was the uh king's sister's brother's friend. Of course I'm gonna see that. Yeah, yeah.
Charles II
Everybody
got
went to
news
go
of his
see
father's
beheadings, bro. It was a
execution,
little
and with his future
disgusting, in my
hanging by a
opinion.
thread, he had scrambled to build an army to reclaim his throne. But his defeat at Worcester at the hands of Cromwell was decisive and had ended all hopes of continuing his family's royal legacy. Night falls, and Charles II watches as the last of the soldiers leave the area. He climbs down and, under the cover of night, makes a break for it. The former crown prince has a bounty placed on his head, and he's hunted across England for 6 weeks. He cuts his hair and dirties his face to hide amongst the commoners until finally he manages to escape to France with just a few of his most loyal men. For the next 9 years, he lives on the run in France and
9
Belgium as
years,
Cromwell and the
bro. I
Parliament
would've been
try to
given up.
extradite him back to England. He's broke, and his few men who remain loyal often go without food or pay. During his exile, Charles gets updates on the state of his homeland. Cromwell was installed as Lord Protector, a position initially designed to function like a modern-day prime minister of a representative government. But things don't turn out like everyone hoped. Cromwell soon becomes a tyrant and leads a genocidal campaign in Ireland that causes mass famine and wipes out somewhere between 20 to 40% of the Irish population.
That's
He
cooked.
goes on to silence the Levelers, a group of MPs who were pushing for equal rights and freedoms for all free men, by killing everyone who opposed him in a churchyard.
That's
And soon,
crazy.
he
You see,
dissolves Parliament,
he wasn't a man
making
of God.
himself the supreme ruler of the land, just like Charles had done. He institutes a form of martial law throughout the Commonwealth, and he even cancels Christmas. Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Why is that guy so fat? Oh,
In
it's Santa.
every way, except the title which he
Oh, that-
politely refused, Cromwell
Yeah.
had become King of England, and he rules as Lord Protector until his death in 1658. His son Richard is made his successor. But Richard Cromwell wasn't like his father. He was a simpler man who loved hunting and being outdoors. He had no desire to deal with all the BS it takes to run a country, and so he's forced to resign as Lord Protector within a year, and England falls into chaos. The experimental republic had failed, and so in May 1660, Parliament essentially admits it messed up and invites Charles II home to reclaim the throne. On May 29, 1660, his 30th birthday, the former crown prince rides into London and the city erupts into celebration. Bells ring from every church
gets
tower,
killed,
and
doesn't he?
crowds pack the streets to welcome home their king. Charles II is crowned, and he turns out to be everything England needs. He's charming and genuinely loved by the people in a way his father never was. He makes England fun again, bringing back arts and theater, and he even uncancels Christmas. He gains the nickname the Merry Monarch, and in a gracious act, he issues a sweeping general pardon for nearly everyone involved in the English Civil Wars. But the key word here is nearly everyone. See, there was a small handful of people that Charles could simply not forgive. The men who had sentenced his father to death and ruined his life for a decade.
Right.
And there was one man he hated more than all the rest, the former Lord Protector, Oliver Cromwell. But there was
He was
just one
dead.
problem. By this time, Cromwell had been dead for years. He'd passed away peacefully and got away with everything scot-free. This
His
was
son.
something
He's gonna
Charles
go to
could
his
simply
son.
Not accept.
No.
He would have no peace until Cromwell had faced justice. And so, on January 30th, 1661, the 12th anniversary of his father's execution, Charles II has the body of Oliver Cromwell exhumed from Westminster Abbey. The dried-up corpse of the former Lord Protector, along with 2 of his co-conspirators, who by the way had also died a long time ago and were also corpses, were brought to Tyburn and hanged in public. Throughout the day, onlookers from across London traveled to see the dead body of Cromwell hanging, finally receiving his punishment. As evening drew near, the executioner lowered the bodies and sloppily chopped off their heads. Cromwell's head is then shoved onto a 20-foot pole
Bro,
and carried through town to
what?
Westminster Hall, where it's mounted above its entrance as a warning to all of what will happen to anyone who kills their king. Now, that is some pretty extreme revenge as it is, but what happens after that to Oliver Cromwell's head is probably one of the weirdest stories in history. See, when Charles II dies and his brother James II takes over as king, Cromwell's head is still chilling up there 24 years later. But one night, a big storm snaps the spike, and the head falls off the roof and lands in the street. A security guard finds it rolling around, and for some reason, he takes it home. When officials realize Cromwell's head is missing, notices are put out for its return. But not wanting to incriminate himself as the person who stole it, the guard never returns it. The
How do
head
we
goes
know
missing
this?
for decades, until one day it shows up in a museum of oddities in the early 1700s, where it's displayed as Oliver Cromwell's head. Most people think it's a fake, and it stays there until the owner of the museum dies. The head is lost again for a few years, but emerges once more in the late 1700s. Now the property of a failed comedian named Samuel Russell, he brings it out at drinking parties, and he and his drunk friends throw it around like a football. Cromwell's head is then purchased by an investor and flipped for a much higher price to two entrepreneurs who set up a new exhibit that fails miserably. The head is then sold again to a man named Josiah Henry Wilkinson, who keeps it in his private collection and passes it down as a family heirloom for hundreds of years.
That is disgusting.
Eventually, in the 1930s, the Wilkinson family brings the head in for scientific testing, and the now very damaged and shriveled up head on a stick is officially confirmed to indeed be the actual head of Oliver Cromwell, the former Lord Protector of England.
That's
Finally,
disgusting.
after generations in the Wilkinson collection, Horace Wilkinson decides to return Cromwell's head to be laid to rest, and so in 1960, the head of the former Lord Protector was entombed in a secret location on the campus of the University of Cambridge after a nearly 300-year adventure separated from its body.
That's nasty. That's nasty. People, that's just nasty, bruh. Don't touch dead things, man. If you like this video, remember to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. That was disgusting. The end video, there was really no revenge in that because the guy was already dead. All right. See you guys. Toodle to the ew. Bye.